Christ always encouraged us to be joyful givers. On today's show, we'll focus on volunteers who embrace that joyful giving spirit. We'll focus on how by living their faith, they're making a difference in the community, but they're also keeping that fun part of our faith life alive and well. Christ said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my midst, there am I. And that's what these volunteers do. When they give their time and talent and treasure, they're doing so with a joyful spirit. We hope you enjoy today's show.
During the early 1800s, epidemics of cholera followed one after another. The dedication of Sister Rosalie Rendu and her sisters were beyond imagination. She herself was seen picking up dead bodies in the streets. During uprisings and bloody battles in 1830 and 1848, she climbed barricades without fear to help wounded fighters, regardless of the side they were fighting on.
This season, we've talked about how we can all grow spiritually when we repurpose our spiritual lives. Father Michael, why is it so important to look at how we can renew and repurpose our lives?
Sure, we've been talking about this idea that God has gifted us so much in our lives. And how often I think we forget that. God has gifted us with the gift of life and all the things that have come with it, the blessings that come along with it, even the challenges. And the invitation for us is to take what He's given and repurpose it for Him, for the church, for our brothers and sisters, in particular for those who are in need. And so we take what God has given and we make something new out of it for the good of everybody. And so the call is to repurpose your life for our God, for our church, and really for our greater community, especially those who are in need. And that's who we're called to be as Catholics.
And part of that repurposing is to have courage, to know it's time to take up that mat and go forward.
Yeah, a lot of times we want to wait. Somebody else will do it. I don't have time right now. When I retire, I'll get to that later when I retire in my life. And the reality is none of us know when the clock is going to run out. We have been given the gift of today. And I love a little quote that reminds us that today is day one. Every day is day one. Today is the day. What are you going to do with your life? You can choose to do nothing, but then what are you saying to God? God has given us so much. And if we choose not to use that for the love of God and neighbor, then we've forgotten those 2 great commandments. But we've also failed to take advantage of what God wants us to do. And He wants us to take courage, to share our life, our love, our gifts, our talents with our brothers and sisters all around us.
And when we share those gifts, we see the gift of our parents.
Sure.
We see the gift of our siblings. We see the gift of the greater community. And doesn't that make us better understand God's love, but also for us internally to thank God for all those gifts?
Yeah, the gifts within us, we're shaped in so many ways by our community, and especially early on in our family of origin. We say all the time, who are the people when we were younger that surrounded us, that molded us? I think my neighbors that were our bookends from our early days, my brother and I and our parents, and those are the people that taught me my faith. My old neighbor, Mr. A.D., he was my confirmation sponsor. Just a beautiful, holy man. You'd go to their home and it didn't matter. They were always in their chairs with their prayer books, with a little ice cream, having a good time, praying and reflecting. And those are the people that form us, but then they also bring out our gifts. And they tell us and help us share those gifts with the community.
And that's what makes strong faith. It's looking at those everyday things,
Sure.
Looking at those examples around us, thanking God that they're in our lives. I know in your recent retreat that you put on at St. Aloysius, you really shared a little bit on the show about your relationship with your father and his collecting.
Sure.
And
Sure.
Every memory is a gift, but that's something we lived, and it's something we can live in the future if we're picking up on that.
Yeah, we have to have our eyes open, right? God is around us every day, every moment of the day, and every piece of the day. I was on a silent retreat recently, and I love to take silent retreats because we're so busied. And one of the things that I found it made me laugh towards the end of the retreat, because as people settled in on the retreat, you observe one another, and we're all in this dining room eating, and there's this bank of windows, and everybody is looking out on the windows at nature during our meals because we're all silent. What else are we going to do? And here comes two birds, and people are just enamored with the birds. Like, we see birds all the time, but in this moment, because we had all been so attentive, something so simple, something so ordinary was speaking to people's hearts. And if our eyes are constantly closed off to God all around us, whether that's in nature and the people that love us, or the strangers around us, we're missing opportunities to see the Lord.
And every opportunity to see the Lord is a great gift, and it's up to each and every one of us to embrace that and to really understand that everything we see, everything we're a part of in life is a blessing from God. And certainly everyone in our St. Vincent de Paul family understands that, and that's why we work so very hard at serving those in need. Our message to you would be to embrace God's beauty and make the world a better place, and join our St. Vincent de Paul family that serves so many of those in need. We're here at St. Vincent de Paul with Volunteers in Action. That's what we do every day, making a difference. And here our volunteers are putting together Brown Bag Supper. And I wanted to kind of chat with you a little bit, talk about why is it important to help people in need in our local community.
Well, as my good friend Roger was saying here, it's because we can, and because if we don't do it, who will? And I'm from Canada, and I just moved here last year, and after seeing everybody devastated by the floods, and we got off really lucky ourselves, it was like giving back to the community. So pay it forward, because you never know when you're going to be in that position.
That's a powerful statement. Is that what kind of embodies your giving, helping the less fortunate?
I agree with that totally. And it's plus, but for the grace of God, we could be coming in and needing these bags ourselves. And this is nothing to be helping, and you get to visit with people and help at the same time. We're helping. I think so. I think we're
250,000 meals every year, and these count toward that. It's important to give. Wouldn't that be the message you would give the community?
absolutely. These people are out there with hardly anything to eat. They get served lunch, and we give them a little bag of a drink, some chips, some cookies, little candy, and they have something to make it through the rest of the day. And we all feel like that's important, and gives us a chance to, give back.
It's all about investing in the community, correct?
Exactly. We've been very blessed, like Larry said, and we just want to give back.
And so, how long have you been doing this, Larry?
Oh, not that long. It's been less than a year.
Has it been fulfilling over that
Oh,
time?
right. And I came in when I was in church one day, and I go to St. George, and Father Mike said, if you want to really feel your worth, he said, volunteer at the mission to serve lunch. So I started out serving lunch. And it's like, it's incredible. It's like,
Father Michael's great, isn't he? Father Schatzel is just awesome. And
if you want to feel like you're doing something for the community, come in. You serve lunch and making these bags. It's like it's almost like I work here now.
would that be a recommendation
Yeah, that's a recommendation.
to the community?
It really is. Yeah. It gives you a good feeling when you walk out the door and go home. You feel good. It does.
You know, you've contributed, you've invested,
Yeah.
and the people are so very appreciative, and that's
And
what
I
the
found-
ministry's all about.
And I found even like Thanksgiving or Christmas, it's like people coming in are wishing each other a Merry Christmas and a Happy Thanksgiving. I said, these are people with maybe nothing, and they're smiling and shaking each other's hands, and everyone when they come in, they always bless us and thank you. We start out with a prayer, thanking the volunteers, thanking the people that prepared the food. It's like they come in thanking us and they're blessing us.
So your time here has been transformative, correct?
It really has, really. I don't know what took me so long to start doing it.
And so the message to the community is don't stop. Follow this tradition of giving and investing. And that's great advice straight from Father Michael Schatzel, pastor
Right.
St. George. So our message to everyone out in the community is to get involved, put your gifts and talents to action, and make a difference for those in need. I hope you've enjoyed this season of Beacons of Light. St. Vincent de Paul News has been carried by Madison Acaldo. You've done a wonderful job, Madison.
Thank you.
Madison's my daughter. Madison is a sophomore at LSU and understands the Vincentian charism of giving to those in need. And yes, the news was mostly not about hard-hitting scandals or anything of that nature. It was all about the goodness of serving others, wasn't it, Madison?
Absolutely.
From Canada to England to United States, a whole wealth of stories were shared over this last season. People changing lives of the poor, but also changing their own lives through service to the poor, right, Madison?
Correct. And you kind of got to see stories that you might not get to see in everyday headlines, but important stories nevertheless.
And it was all due to the spiritual formation of those who share their stories of being a Vincentian and what the Vincentian charism meant to themselves and to those they were so blessed to serve. I often say that we all have to take an inventory of blessings in our lives. It gives us an opportunity to say, hey, God is active and He is in our lives, and how can we share that love with others? Madison, is that an important part of your spiritual life?
I think so. Honestly, serving others and being able to serve the poor and the most needy is definitely one of the most fundamental parts of my spirituality and relationship with God.
And that's what St. Vincent de Paul and our Vincentian charism is all about. Growing closer to Christ by service to those who are poor, those who are homeless, those who really need that helping hand up. They need to feel God's love. They need to feel God's mercy. And when you think about it, Madison, don't we all need to feel God's love and mercy every day?
We all do. We all come down on hard times in particular parts in our life, and having God there for us is what gets us through those hard times.
And I hate to tell everybody in the world, but the real news of the world today happened 2,000 years ago when Jesus Christ came into this world to share one message. And that message was to love one another. That's what Vincent tried to do. He tried to establish a way that us imperfect human beings can follow Christ's perfection in service to others, Christ's perfection in sharing God's love. That's the news. Madison brought you stories that were all about people helping people, people who committed themselves to making a difference, whether it be here in the United States, our new spiritual advisor at a national level, people who give their lives to Christ because they understand that sharing God's love is what it's all about. I think Madison did a great job sharing the news with us.
Thank you.
And I thank you for being a part of St. Vincent de Paul News right here in the Diocese of Baton Rouge. It's through your generosity and your goodwill that so much good happens right here in our local community. At St. Vincent de Paul, faith is alive and well, and Constable Brown is one of our most ardent supporters and active participants in our ministries. Why is faith in our community so important?
Faith is everything. If we don't have faith, in most cases I would say we have no hope. Because if we don't have the faith to make us push for what we know is to be the right thing to do, then we have no hope. We failed even before we began. So faith is everything, and I depend on faith. I depend on faith from our church, my church, St. Joseph's Cathedral, and I look at a small person that I took a lot from learning and listening and seeing, and that was Bishop Stanley Ott.
Oh, yeah.
A man of faith.
Oh, yes, sir.
I mean, even during, and you're talking about faith, a world of faith. I mean, take a person like him who came through like he did. He was here too short a time as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
But God knows best. And through that faith, that has made me realize that there's so many things that we can contribute in our life, in our community, to make it a better place and to unify our community. Because at a time, some of the times that we're living in today, unity, faith, and realizing that we're all children of God, and we should try to make sure that we use our faith to do the right thing.
And that's what we're all called to do, to come together.
That's it.
And you know, Bishop Ott, he was like me. He's kind of, you know, but
Yep.
he was a little man with a dynamite.
Oh, man.
You could see Christ's love.
Hey, a heart bigger than gold, bigger than this world, and bigger than life. And I think that's why God brought him where he needed him to help more. But he left an example here for us to follow. And anybody that's ever had any doubt, all they have to do is go back and look at anything that Bishop Stanley Ott did and tried to make happen in our community. And if we just take one piece, one fraction of it, we can make a difference in our community and the lives of many just through faith. It's not no money,
Right.
just a little bit of time, a little
Right.
faith.
And a little faith goes a long way, and that's our invitation to you to join St. Vincent de Paul. Get involved. Bishop Ott once said, if I've been a light in some small way, all of us can be a light. Be a light, just like Constable Brown and all the great members of our St. Vincent de Paul family. Get involved with us. Go to svdpbr.org today to see how you can get involved in our St. Vincent de Paul ministries.
Sister Rosalie Rendu, a daughter of charity, taught the first members of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul the art of helping the poor and the sick. In the 19th century, she was a leading worker and organizer of care for the poor in one of the most impoverished districts in Paris. There, disease, filth, unhealthy slums, and destitution were the daily lot of the people who were struggling to survive.
One of the things that I've learned a lot from our local Vincentian family is that the men and women and youth that are involved with our work, they make faith fun. I mean, St. Vincent de Paul was very serious about his ministry, but if you look in the past, if you look today, there's always an element of keeping things lively. When we think of Christ while he was with us, you see a jovial Christ. You see someone sharing stories about how to live a life that our Heavenly Father wants us to live. And part of that, as I shared in previous episodes, was that, you know, Vincent de Paul, if he described himself, he'd call himself kind of grumpy, had an anger management thing he had to really stay on top of. But one of the things that he would tell you is that to grow spiritually, you had to believe in what you do, and you need to have some fun. That's what we do at St. Vincent de Paul. We have fun. It's fun to live that gospel message, especially the part of serving those in need. A lot of times when people come to give of their time, their talent, their treasure, they come to want to do something for somebody else. And Vincent de Paul himself, if you look back over his readings, you see the great richness that he preached on. When you come to give, you find that you get back so much more. And that getting back is that spiritual growth, that spiritual understanding, that spiritual nourishment. And that's something all our faith lives need, that spiritual nourishment. That's what can make something that is hard work fun. It can make something that might be a difficult task challenging, but something that if you're having fun, whether it's wrapping Christmas presents, cooking food, filling prescriptions, you can have a delightful time. And while doing so, the people you serve and are so blessed to serve, those who are less fortunate, They see that jovial atmosphere, and you can tell that they're embraced by it. They feel that good news. Christ is a Christ with a smile on his face, with his arms open. And that's what we're called to be, someone who is a happy giver, a joyful giver, someone that understands by us giving and also giving all the credit to God himself that we are happy, and happy in the most important way, and that is in our own spiritual formation. That's what St. Vincent de Paul Society is all about. A lot of people think of us as a social service group. Vincent de Paul, 400 years ago, made it clear we're a spiritual group, a group of faith, a group following Christ. And that's our invitation to you, to get involved, to help make history here locally with our own Vincentian family. Join us in having a lot of fun. But more importantly, while we have that fun, we're going to make the gospel light come to life for so many of those in need. Our faith is built on giving, sharing God's love in a powerful way. And I'm here with Joe Keegan, and he's going to talk about our Child of God philosophy here at St. Vincent.
Hi, how are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great.
Great.
I'm in a shelter.
We're in a shelter here at the men's shelter. One of the things we've noticed over the past 6 years especially, but even over the 27 years we've been working here, is that the kind of people we're serving has radically changed. So one of the things that's happening is we're getting people with more and more disabilities, more and more adverse childhood experiences they've gone through, and more physical problems and more mental health problems. So let me kind of flesh that out a bit. So, for example, we know that between 75 and 95% of our women were sexually abused, physically abused, raped, victims of domestic violence within the past year to 27 years. So we'll get women who've been here who started being raped at the age of 4, 5, and 6. What happens for those poor women is that it then adversely affects their ability to learn how to set boundaries, how to take care of themselves, and then their decision-making abilities become different than somebody who did not suffer through those kinds of experiences. So we see women coming here who have a significant amount of decision-making and self-care troubles, so that what they do to take care of themselves may not result in the positive outcome they're striving for. We also see people who are so scared because of domestic violence that while they're here, we're super careful about the locked doors and where they are within the locked doors. And we teach them about this when they come, and then we all enforce that to make sure our women are adequately safe. Another piece that has changed is dementia. We're getting more old people here, and by old, when you're homeless, old age occurs early, as often as early as middle 40s. So we're getting people here in the middle, late 40s who have significant dementia, such as you would see normally in somebody who's 70, 75. And we're seeing this more frequently, and it's tied to a multitude of problems, some of them physical, such as they've had heart attacks, they've had cancer, they've had diabetes. Some of it's tied to mental health issues, which impair your mental functionings, and some of it's also tied to substance abuse issues. When we first started this shelter, we were talking to one of our night managers, who's now one of our supervisors. He's been here over 20 years. And he said when he was first a night manager, maybe 1 or 2 people in our night shelter would be people who had mental health or physical disabilities and couldn't go work. Sometimes now it's 1 or 2 people who can go get a job. And we see that not only what they accomplish, but when we talk to them when they come in, we can see right away we would be very careful before we would consider hiring them for any of the many positions we do have here at St. Vincent de Paul. And as you know, Michael, we do hire people who are homeless to come work for us.
Yeah, and it's a good experience. People that have been in this situation, they best know what the challenges are to overcome homelessness, which is quite a challenge. And I know that through the years, those who are suffering from mental illness, it's just the severity of it has made those people have an inability not to go to work. It's not laziness. People aren't here because they're lazy, right, Jay?
Correct.
I mean, sometimes in the general public, people think homeless are lazy. They want a handout. not a hand up. That's not true, is it?
It is not true. There are a lot of barriers that make accomplishing the same task much more difficult for somebody who's homeless than somebody who's not. For example, we had a guest here who needed a birth certificate. She needed the birth certificate in order to get a driver's license or state ID. She needed the state ID in order to be able to get a job. It took 5 social workers working every day of the week 2 months to accomplish this because the woman was not a Louisiana-born person. So we were dealing with an out-of-state system, and they kept coming up with new things that we would have to do, forms we would have to fill out, letters we would have to write. And in this particular situation, St. Vincent de Paul was paying for the birth certificate, so it wasn't a question of money. We finally resolved it after 2 months because the other state required a copy of the driver's license of one of our social workers. And of course, we cannot let our staff do that as a general matter course. And I gave them my driver's license because after 2 months, this woman really wanted to go to work. And that was the only way we were able to accomplish that. These sorts of barriers are in place, not in any intentional way make it harder for homeless people, but simply that when states modernize systems, they say, we're going online, we're going to have you do credit cards, all that. It works for someone like me, and it is more efficient for me. But if you're homeless, these systems cause you more difficulty than it would for someone like myself.
And that's why we navigate those things here at St. Vincent de Paul, because everyone we see is a child of God. And that's why we need you to become active in our ministry here at St. Vincent de Paul. Help us to help those who truly need that hand up of hope. On today's show, we focused on the importance of being a joyful giver. We talked to volunteers at St. Vincent de Paul that embrace that giving spirit. It's so important to embrace giving and making a difference. Volunteers have told me time and time again that when they don't come to serve a meal at St. Vincent de Paul, maybe they have a doctor's appointment or something else comes up, or they can't come and volunteer at the pharmacy even though they do so every Monday because of another issue or appointment that may be coming up, that they feel a great emptiness. They feel like they've lost an opportunity. And what that opportunity is being a joyful giver, giving God's love to those in need. They come to not see what they can get, but instead see what they can give. That's what our St. Vincent de Paul family is all about, seeking what we can give, seeking how we can make our community and world a better place. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and we hope you'll go to svdpbr.org to see how you can become a part of our St. Vincent de Paul family.